Hello, my name's Tom Dawes. The Real Deal is your opportunity to treat me like an interviewing puppet, to ask senior leaders the questions you've been burning to ask. Today we pick the enormous brains of Sunil and Balram about why sales roles are so important for your career. Gentlemen, welcome to The Real Deal. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, guys, we're going to get down to the important questions about sales and why it's so important for your career at Godrej. So let's start off with you, Sunil. Why is it so important to do sales?
Yeah, I think in any business model, and it's not doesn't apply to only FMCG, I think it applies to almost every industry, is that there are two big pieces which finally will make the business tick. One is between a brand and a consumer, there is the acceptability of the brand and the product which has to happen by the consumer. And second is there has to be availability of the brand. So I think these are the two A's really that matter. And while acceptability all comes through brand building, a great product, advertising, which is the glamour part of the business, which most people really want to be in. The fact is that doesn't exist if there is no availability.
Okay.
And that actually is another very, very critical pivot of the business. And if you don't know this, how well this works, the intricacies of the availability piece, I think the acceptability piece is meaningless.
Okay, so then how does sales make you a better marketeer?
Yeah. So I think what you end up learning in sales, really the first piece is, and especially if you go from the India context, or actually it can go even from any other continent context, is the complexities of go-to-market are very, very different in any country. And to make a product reach to the customers requires learning to manage multiple channels. You require to learn to work with different people. And by and large, what you're doing in sales is you're working indirectly through people and still making your product available. So I think what it teaches you is the dynamics of how your product behaves when it actually lands into the various layers of the market. And that behavior of what your product goes through physically, what your product goes through, the way people sell it, the way it gets appreciated by retailers, is all a learning which happens on the ground.
So have you done marketing and sales in your career?
Yeah. In fact, I did a lot of sales first before I moved to marketing. I did 6.5 years of sales before actually I moved to marketing.
And you think that made you a better marketeer?
Very clearly. In fact, I think my first stint was in the state of Bihar actually, which is the most rural of states. But if I were to just look back, what it taught me at that time really laid a solid foundation of how to build brands.
So as far as I am concerned, I started my sales stint in Punjab in 1991 when the state was under terrorism and situations were very tough. And I would say that to do sales that time was a tough thing in terms of the terrain, etc., but was very easy because nobody was going there. So I learned a lot at that time. So some of the things which I can definitely say sales stint has taught me is I used to be very timid, then I became extroverted. I started listening and talking to people because it is about connect.
How important, therefore, is it that we hire marketeers that have done sales?
I'm a firm believer that you can be a very good marketeer only if you've done sales. And maybe I'll just give a couple of examples. If you've been in sales, the first thing you really know is what is the life of a distributor salesman, which is the last pipeline which leads to execution. And it's so important to understand the bandwidth, the challenges, the behavior motivations of that last mile. That as a marketeer, when you're even making your, let's say, a product story, which you want to get communicated to the retailer, if you know how a DSR functions, what kind of language he uses, what kind of number of priorities he has on his hands, you will be able to appreciate and then make your product story which you want to be retailed through so differently versus a person who just comes straight into marketing and is just consumed by only his or her brand.
Okay.
That's one example.
Yeah.
Second, for example, even when you design a packaging of a product, the biggest challenge you have to realize is that the shelf, how does it look like, for example, in a modern trade? It's so different from the one it looks like in a supermarket versus how it looks like into a maybe 10s and 12s different types of general trade outlets. All those nuances, etc., you can only appreciate if you have been there, done it yourself, faced it and got insights behind that.
So it affects everything from product design all the way through the communication.
Yeah, I think it's very critical.
Interesting.
And I always say that there are only two types of people who should be in the organization: people who serve the customer, and all of us should serve the people who serve the customer. And that is what Sunil was mentioning, that all the people in the organization should be empowering the last mile. If you see, I think one of the most competitive sector is telecom now. And I think if you really want to understand the dynamism of sales, that is the sector. And I would say that this is something which does not happen in our sectors, but this is where suddenly great salespeople are coming out of.
Great. I have spent time there. So I've been there in telecom for some time. Yeah, and one thing I can tell you, if once you start liking that whole, the rush of achievement which happens of numbers, it can be very, very addictive.
Did you rehearse this before you came in? Because that sounded very rehearsed.
No. It's, I can.
Wise people seldom differ.
Yeah.
Great. Well, look, and it says here that we're doing lots of interesting work to make our sales systems more future ready.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't sound like an interesting sentence, is it?
No, I think we're doing a lot of work, right? You know, this first of all, this future ready piece is a very, very
Cliched.
often cliched,
Yes.
you know, misused and maybe maligned word. But the fact is, I think one change which has happened in sales is that technology is making a big difference, and I think the world is becoming, the selling world itself has become more complex.
Yeah.
So I think we are doing a lot of stuff on technology to make the life of the DSR or the distributor salesman, our field officers, or for that matter, our area managers, simpler.
A lot of people, marketeers who are from the cities, find it hard to live in remote areas. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I think it's a job which has to be done, first of all. I mean, you have to accept it.
That's compassionate of you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a reality. I mean, I wouldn't like to, sugarcoat this, to be very honest. I think all successful people have to go through a grind, right, in their formative years. And that grind is what makes the diamond shine later on.
Join sales at Godrej, it's a grind.
So I think one thing you have to be prepared for is, if you really want to be a successful, person later on, there has to be a readiness to take a grind in the formative years.
Yeah.
And yes, those challenges do exist in sales, and we better kind of, accept them. And rather than seeing this as a checklist to be done as a formality, I would say that this is the acceptance of it. I need to really enjoy and learn this and take it intrinsically into me.
Okay.
And that's the piece,
Regarding small cities, I think I can say that for Agrovet, that you have to be in a small city to make a difference, because our life is there. And for FMCG, I think I would say that in case you don't want to be there, I think don't join the FMCG companies. Most of the cities, the penetration of all FMCG is very, very high. It is, whatever demand is likely to come from rural India, because it is still underserved. This is the place you will get a lot of time, lot of exposure. There is less distraction. You can focus on your business. You need not waste time commuting or answering mails or making presentations. So this is the best time to learn. Yeah. So you must give it your best, and the results will come because the opportunity is there in rural India.
Yeah. Okay. But so we're saying there are challenges of being a salesperson. But what are those challenges? If we're going to be upfront with people and say, look, it is a grind. It can be a grind. What are the challenges that they are likely to face?
So I think the first challenge would be the physical challenge. I mean, you have to be on the you have to be on the ground, And while India has changed so much now, it's not the same sales which I did 20 years back in Patna and Bihar of that time. The infrastructure has become so fantastic across every part of the country. But the fact is, you still will have to accept that you will be on the ground, right? And if you're going to do sales, you will be in tough climates. You'll have to go to the heat and dust of it. So there's a physicality to it, which one has to learn to manage. That's one piece. Second is, yes, sales is a last mile, while the whole organization is chasing numbers. The fact is, the last mile is held the most accountable for numbers on a daily basis. So that's the second piece of the...
So pressure.
So where the pressure does come in, So there's a psychological piece to it. And the third piece is definitely is that many times you're away from your own social circle. Yeah. You're away from friends, you're away from family. And it can get a little lonely at times, So and there are countermeasures, is you build your own circles. So the second piece is how do you find some kind of measures to keep your morale, keep your, passion alive on beyond sales.
Yeah, keep the energy going.
And obviously, we are cognizant of that we need to create this fun and lightness element into sales. So what we've also done is that we have, introduced this 50,000 rupees non-metro allowance, which is something which you can use to have club memberships, pursue your hobbies, or any other passion which you want to do in this off metro assignments.
I think it's great that we're being so honest about it. Actually, I think it's really, really useful. I mean, do you have a particular memory from your time on the ground that was a really positive and enjoyable experience that you want to share?
When we started the business, and I see now there are big differences. There are places which have hotels. So in those days there were no hotels also.
So where were you staying?
Yeah, so we would stay at guest houses and in places like Himachal and all, we would just have homestays. So you park in distributor's house, and that was a done thing. People were doing it for ages in Unilever and Godrej, etc. So you just, and it is a common practice because he makes the room available and you have a drink with him, and then he serves you food, and then you are off to the next place because these are small places, there is no place to stay. But now things have definitely improved. Apart from that, I think every sales stint I have enjoyed, everywhere I have memories. We have got stuck because of difficult circumstances. I remember that when Babri Masjid demolition took place, I was in Saharanpur and we were stuck in a hotel for 3 days and we ran out of food. So these are also memories. But all this helps because being there, done that is a very, very big thing in life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, I can tell you, when you finish with the sales stints now, there's so many memories you carry. There's so many relationships which you have formed, which you stay with you. That you can, they're lifetime memories. This getting stuck. That couple of instances which I recall in those days. Now the infrastructure is so good. I remember this was in Nepal actually, which happened. I used to handle along with Bihar, Nepal at that time. And I was on this, the flights in Nepal also were not really, so much rampant at that stage. And I had to take the bus, and it was grinding journeys of 16 hours overnights from a place called Pokhara to Kathmandu. And then landslide happens on the way. And we were stuck on the highway for 2 days. And I remember...
Just on the road?
On the road, yeah, because it took 2 days to clear the highway, And there were villagers around, they came down to buses, and each biscuit, I remember, which was 5 rupees, you were selling at 100 rupees, kind of thing. And then you managed, it was chilling cold, but everybody's there. But yeah, these are memories you remember, these are tough, we had got injured a little, but you build bonds with those
teams.
They make you, yeah.
So this is a different world altogether. But I'm telling you that all this, like I'm saying, no information, no support, makes us so independent. Now we have to think on our feet. We have to find solutions. And all solutions are so creative. No management institute can teach you that.
No.
So I am saying that I really feel that people who go through this in the first 4 or 5 years, they're all set in life. So it is very difficult for them to go wrong unless and until they intentionally do something wrong in life.
And what about women in sales? It's not been a traditional role for women. Is that changing, and how are we supporting that change?
Yeah, I think it's a change which has been happening for quite some time. Maybe I would say maybe we need to accelerate this definitely within Godrej more.
Yeah.
But if I were to look out in many other fields across sales, other industries, other companies, I think it's something which is maybe they are a little ahead of the curve, and we need to maybe make it much more accelerated inside. And I think very clearly we have to keep in mind that the role is tougher. Given that some of the challenges that we have of cultural challenges across multiple states which exist within India, there are unfortunately some deep-rooted biases which do exist in channel, etc., and we have to be cognizant of that. But these are not unsurmountable, right? I think what we have to do is we have to say that every role can be done by women in sales, whether it's a frontline role, even in the rural areas, and whether it's a top-level sales head role itself in the organization. And I can tell you, we have got some, while it's still a journey, there are some brilliant cases and examples which exist today. In fact, I think around 2 years back, we published and popularized this whole story of this lady, Kanti, who works as an interim sales rep in the rural-most areas of one of the most notorious states of Eastern UP. It's a story full of sheer grit. and courage. And we're in the most rural, male-dominated society. She's just gone on to become a very successful saleswoman.
Fantastic.
Secondly, I think what we definitely need to do is we need to make life safer and easier for women if we want to encourage them into sales. And that, I think, is a responsibility that we carry. We should be aware of some of the situation, environmental challenges which do exist, right? And we need to make that, easier. So, for example, we have this policy now of, we have like these hotels, what Balram was saying. Like from men, you can just walk in and stay in any hotel, when you're in a small town. For women, you have to be a bit careful about society, about the hotel safety. So we have actually tied up and created a Godrej Group audited kind of safe hotels, across, where you can just check in and stay as a woman also when you are traveling to those hotels. I think car policies have become friendlier. When you travel, you can just take a car, a cab, and just move around in your own car. Even from frontline sales women, we have created this policy that if it's 8 p.m. and beyond, don't bother, just take a cab, even if you're not entitled to. So I think we need to do these kind of policies, which are important. Second piece I think we definitely need to do is, and which is an ongoing exercise, we need to sensitize our people more about women in sales.
Yeah.
Because those biases do tend to exist, that I think women can't do sales.
Yeah.
I think so that's a piece where sensitization has to be done continuously, so that we kind of start overcoming those biases.
Okay, great. So look, that's all the questions I have for you today, guys. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so I must tell you, since you asked me that, let me just pitch in more for the sales function, because as you rise in life, you will be selling something different. And the peak came in 2017 when Godrej Agrovet went public. And to get a company listed is a very big deal, actually. So you have to sell the value proposition to very discerning investors, what the company stands for. And we were being very nervous, and I was told by one very senior guy in Kotak Bank, who knew me very well. He says, Balram, you are a quintessential sales guy. This is your final test. Now you have sold dreams, you have sold products, you have sold distributorships, etc., etc. But now you are going to sell your company, and this is your big test. So I am saying that all the things which I learned in 27, 28 years before 2017 came in very handy, and I'm very happy that I started my career like this, and I loved what I did in early years of my life. And at one time when I moved to profit center head role, I made one comment that at least I'm out of sales, but you're never out of sales in life. You're always there selling something, communicating something to people. So please do that, because you will never get an opportunity to do sales once you have moved up in your career.
But one big thing which sales prepares you for, and which is something which Balram also referred to, is which we all miss. Sales is your first leadership stint of your career. It is the first time you actually lead people. There could be different profiles, and the first time you are really thrown and taught how to lead teams.
Yeah.
And that first leadership lesson, if learnt well, actually prepares you for higher leadership roles.
Great.
So one of the biggest is the first leadership lesson lies there. And do sales for, if nothing else, learning how to be a leader.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I think it's been really fascinating to listen to your perspectives, and clearly we encourage everyone to get into sales.